Hi, community. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with me today. My name is Kristin Skelton. I'm the founder of Bud Funding, and here we are all about making sustainability easy, fun, and helping you live your best sustainable life. So thank you so much for pressing play and being here live with me or watching the replay. So today is all about solar steam and renewable heat. But before we dive right in, I just want to remind everyone that registration for the Bud Funding Academy is now open. And this is a program I created because there wasn't anything like this out there. It's a hands-on, project-based, creative, fun, colorful program that's a holistic learning of sustainability. And I'm going to hold you accountable each step of the way. It's lots of fun. It's a small community, and I can't wait to get started. So if you want to join that program, the link to do so is in the description of this video. If you have a question about the program and you would like to book a one-on-one with me, you can book a clarity call. And to do that, the link is in the description of this video as well. So now let's get into today's video, which is solar steam and renewable heat. So today I'm joined by my friend, Apostal Radev is a Canadian made in Bulgaria, and he has been passionate about developing clean technology since he took his first course in environmental sciences over 15 years ago. His obsession with learning and knowing more took him on a journey to Canada from Bulgaria to pursue trades education and a graduate degree to better understand the areas of renewable technology that will have the greatest impact on slowing down and reversing climate change. And Apostle and myself also completed our Masters of Science together in Sustainable Energy Development. So Apostle, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Hello, Kristin. Thanks for having me. I'm great.
So now let's dive right in. And I want to know a little bit about your background. So have you always been interested in renewable energy? How did you first get interested in this area?
So it is true, actually, what you just shared a couple of minutes ago is that the first time I took a closer interest into sustainability is when I took my first course in environmental science. I mean, the part of Bulgaria that I grew up in is that we have a lot of mountainous regions, so I've always been exposed to runoff river hydro systems, but I never saw them or understood them from the perspective of renewable energy. I always felt like this is the resource that we have, so this is what we use for energy generation. And even growing up, we had a lot of coal-fired facility, and we also have always had a nuclear power facility in Bulgaria as well. But once again, to me, it was just part of how power and electricity is being generated. So it wasn't until I took my first course, in environmental science, where I was really introduced to the principles of actually life cycle impact assessment. That's something that really made a huge impression on me. And also the drivers behind, in a way, the capital cost of some of these projects and the operational cost of these projects. So that's something that actually really sparked the interest of, in a way, how does the supply and demand work, and what are the drivers behind some of the prices that we see with what we're paying for various types of power, including electricity as well as heat.
And so you touched on a couple of different industries that were kind of and renewable energy sources that were just kind of everyday normal for you. So what is the renewable energy industry like over in Bulgaria?
So we have quite a bit of hydro. I mean, it's always arguable whether we want to label nuclear energy as renewable or not, but we've had a nuclear facility for, I believe, probably over 40 years. And from a young age, I always remember seeing the solar panels, but actually they were the evacuated tubes, which is the solar thermal energy. So when people ask me, like, when did you first learn or hear about solar thermal energy, it's probably from a very young age. Just remember seeing them on rooftops all across my part of the country. But in my probably early 20s, actually, I had a couple of friends of mine that went into just installing rooftop PV systems, like various cities across the country. And they actually went on becoming extremely successful in working on multiple utility scale projects across Europe as well as the Middle East. So I dare say that there is a lot of expertise that has been developed based on the resources that we had available, which, I would say is very similar to where we are at even here in Alberta, which is my new home, where we have very strong expertise in energy in general. We know how to manage assets. So it's a matter of just taking that knowledge and just helping us to see how we can start looking into other ways that we can help our province and our country economically, while also going in a direction where we have less polluting sources of energy.
So you are the co-founder of SolarSteam. So where did this idea come from?
You know what? It probably the idea originated when I was completing my studies at SAIT. I took a course in industrial water treatment and power engineering. So this is when I started understanding the concepts that of thermal energy generation, how it's highly driven by boiling water, that you turn water into steam and you run that steam through a turbine. But something else that I started understanding more and more is that in a province like ours, we actually have an epic demand for thermal energy alone. So there is no need to actually take the steam and run it through a turbine to turn it into electricity. And here we're talking about district heating and cooling, various industrial processes, petrochemicals, including like our oil and gas industry. I'm actually not under the mindset that we can overnight step away from the oil and gas generation, but I want to look into all the ways how we can lower the footprint of extraction, and actually our technology can help with that, among with many other processes. So this is when, in a way, not knowingly, I was going into that idea of the problem fit solution. That in my mindset, I identified like we are a huge consumer of thermal energy in our province as well as across the world, and we have a fantastic source that can help us generate that thermal energy, which is the power of the sun. But instead of using in all these different types of solar technology that goes directly into electricity or power, let's look into a particular type of technology that can withstand the harsh weather conditions that we have here, and can also deliver thermal energy with very high efficiency or capacity factor, as both you and I learned in our graduate studies.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit more about the technology of the system? How does the technology work? And maybe some energy storage, how does that work within the system?
Of course, yeah, by all means. So we are in the solar space, but we are not the solar PV or photovoltaic, which is what many of us are used to seeing. So the way our technology uses that we use parabolically curved mirrors or collectors that concentrate sunlight onto a pipe, or what we call solar receiver. So after that, then solar energy is concentrated onto that pipe. We have thermal fluid or water that comes in from one side of the pipe or the inlet, which is turning to hot water and steam exiting from the other side of the pipe, or what we call the outlet. And that thermal energy in the form of hot water and steam can be applied into various processes. And also our system features an enclosure membrane and structure that helps shelter the system from the harsh environmental elements that we see, especially in borders such as snow, hail, but actually most importantly, wind loading. Wind loading is one of the biggest cost drivers of conventional systems, and there was a conventional system previously deployed in Medicine Hat that was having some serious issues with withstanding to the winds. Mm-hmm. So our system actually uses very lightweight collectors because we have the ability to shelter them in that enclosure. And I believe you also mentioned you're curious about storage. Mm-hmm. So we're actually currently working on deploying our commercial pilots in Penoka, Alberta. And our commercial pilot will actually have thermal storage as part of the system. So we're going to be using what is called a phase change material system, where we have the ability to store the heat. And once again, that ability to store the heat versus storing electricity has a much higher efficiency or capacity factor at a much lower cost and much longer longevity.
And Apostle mentioned that there is there was a similar setup in Medicine Hat. And we actually got the opportunity when we were doing our master's to go down to Medicine Hat and to view that. And lots of this community also knows that I am originally from Medicine Hat. So Apostle, would this technology be primarily residential, commercial, or both in terms of use?
So in a way, we're working on two lines of products right now, and one of the products would be mostly tailored for rooftop installation. So that would be smaller collectors, where we can have an architecturally designed rooftop enclosure, which was actually part of a challenge that we responded to with the Mayor's Innovation Challenge here in Calgary, and we were selected as a finalist. So that type of installation would be largely for commercial, and maybe I would say multi-building or multi-unit residential, but not necessarily small residential installations. And the other line of products that we are currently working on is developing what we call utility scale module. So this would be a much larger module that would be intended for industrial applications, anything from food and alcohol production to petrochemicals, oil and gas, or any type of mining, to district heating, as well as various types of metals transformation.
And you touched on wind a little bit. So I'm also curious, how does temperature, clouds, hail, we get some heavy hail in Calgary occasionally, and other variables impact the efficiency of the system?
So the system, it's actually one of the novel aspects of our technology is that the system is sheltered in a double sloped dome or membrane enclosed structure. So we actually require very minimal cleaning compared to conventional systems, and hail, we have no reservations or issues with the ability of our system to withstand hail and snow. The way the structure is designed is to have a self shutting off mechanism. And when it comes to some of the coldest days of the year that we're very familiar with here in Alberta, is we have a novel way of preventing the system from freezing, or our winterization program. So everything that has gone into the design of our system is with keeping harsh weather conditions in mind. But something else that's quite interesting about our province and Calgary in particular is that Calgary is one of the sunniest cities in North America, probably not as sunny as Medicine Hat, but quite close. And when you compare the DNI, the direct normal irradiance, or the solar potential of Calgary, compared to, let's say, Oman is one example that we used in the Middle East, it's very comparable, because despite having some cloudy days and the long winter months, what, for example, the Middle East is experiencing, it's a lot of dust storms. So the sun penetration to the ground in the Middle East tends to be very comparable to what we see in central Alberta as well.
That's interesting about the dust storms. Yeah, I never thought about how it actually blocks the sun. And so we had a question come in from the Bud Funding community, and they asked, "Can you talk a little bit about the sourcing of materials for the system? Do you use any recycled materials? What are the options for recycling the material at end of use of the system?"
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So here, once again, I would emphasize that the way our technology works is that we are not a traditional PV or photovoltaic system. So we don't use the amount of pressure metals that typically go in conventional systems. And the life cycle aspect of what we do is something that's of utmost importance to us. So I would actually ask the community to stay tuned and perhaps sign up for our newsletters on our website and follow us on LinkedIn, because we're going to be rolling out some new information in the next 2 or 3 months. But the way our system is designed is to use a substantial amount of actually recycled materials and sustainable materials. We have to be, truth be told, is that we, as a business operator, we have to be a little careful with how we structure that, because the cost goes significantly higher when we use some of the highly recycled or sustainable materials. But we would like to be able to give that ability to our clients and customers to make that decision, whether they want to actually really go in the direction of using as close as it gets to 100% recyclable and sustainable materials, or whether they would like to perhaps just do a bit of a blend and a hybrid. But even with the materials that we're going to use that have not been previously recycled, they are going to be developed so that they can have that cradle-to-cradle ability, so that every component of our system will be fully recyclable. And also, we're developing a system under a modular design, so that when the system is deployed, and we're looking at about 25-year lifespan, if let's call it the asset or the owner or the adopter only has a need for our system for 10 or 15 years, we have the ability to actually relocate the system to another site or recycle the materials if need be.
And how have you had to be creative throughout the development of this company?
Oh, I'll tell you, in more ways than you can imagine, than I was able probably to imagine a little while back. We've had to be creative in many ways, but most importantly, probably in the I don't like calling it stakeholder engagement. The internal phrase that we use is commercialization collaborators. So we've had to be very creative in finding the right people to join our team, as well as with finding the right organizations to collaborate with. And as a startup, we have to be very frugal. We have a finite amount of resources, and we always need to look into ways of extending runway. And we even jokingly say internally with the team is that we've had to master the art of begging for support and for help. We always want to be respectful of our relationships. And we are very, very fortunate to have been able to work with a couple of extremely strong collaborators that don't just talk the talk but walk the walk. And actually would like to give a shout out to Scoven Engineering, which is one of our local collaborators, as well as the host of our pilot project, which is Gemini Fabrication in Penoka. And probably another big break for us was that I was selected as a fellow through the Alberta government Green Stamp program. That's also injecting over $250,000 of support. But maybe an interesting story that I'll tell here is that I was not successful the first time I applied for this program, which was in 2018. It was a few-step process. It was an expression of interest. You're invited for the interviews, and then past that stage, you're invited for a full proposal and another interview. So I made it to the first interview, but I was not successful making it after that round. And yes, I was upset. I wish some of the feedback that they gave me did not make sense. But at that point, I decided to almost like go in the direction of to listen and to actually build a better proposal next time around, instead of just completely disengaging and deciding that maybe this is not what I'm meant to do, or maybe just the world is unable to understand what it is that we're doing. So that, to me, that has been a fantastic lesson of how to be creative. It's actually to listen to the feedback that people are giving you and to go back stronger. As cheesy and as simple as it sounds, that has been probably the biggest breakthrough that we've made over the last couple of years.
And on a personal note, is this the first time you've gone on the entrepreneurial journey, or have you had other ventures in the past? Were you an entrepreneur as a kid?
So you know what? It's funny that I didn't mean to bring up that Green Stamp application process, but the first year I applied, and when I made it to the interview stage, they actually asked me that question: what does entrepreneurship mean to me? And I couldn't actually answer that question. I told them that in my native language, like in Bulgarian, we don't have a word for like entrepreneurial. And I really struggled. It was like going in a direction, okay, maybe it's just finding creative solutions, just making things work. And it took me a couple of months to come up with my own interpretation of what entrepreneurship means. And the phrase that I came up with is that it is the overlapping space, and overlapping is the key word between stupidity and courage. And as long as you're more on the courageous side, as long as you're 51% on the courageous side versus the stupidity side, then you're going in the right direction. But I remember, like my grandparents, my parents, like a lot of people in my family have always had like some type of a small business. So I imagine that has helped with just finding, always think creatively and to find new ways to do old things, or to reinvent old things and do them in new ways. And I've always liked asking questions. Like, truth be told, I didn't do that well in high school, and so I had a lot of my teachers and maybe peers that were getting frustrated every time I do just keep on asking questions. But and over time, I learned to maybe know when it's the right time to push and when it is the right time to wait. But overall, I'm still infinitely curious. And it's really hard for me to give up on something unless I've given it my 100% best.
And my academic advisor during my master's said, if you can spell entrepreneurship, then you're not a real entrepreneur. Because I was like complaining to him one day. I was like, I don't like this word. I can never spell it right. And he's like, well, you must be an entrepreneur, because if you can't spell it, then you're an entrepreneur, I guess. So that was what my academic advisor said. So if people want to find out more about you, SolarSteam, future projects, future rollouts, how do they get connected to you and SolarSteam?
So my email, it's apostle@solarsteam.ca. I would also encourage and invite everyone to follow us on both LinkedIn and also sign up for our newsletters on our website at solarsteam.ca. And yes, we are looking actually in considering some new ways of how we can further engage the community as well. So we're currently fundraising, but we're always interested in talking to people that actually just understand the space that we're in and want to learn more and want to help us, even in ways beyond just dollar contributions. We are very fortunate to have a very strong network of advisors, but we never shy away from having the opportunity to talk to new people and hear a new perspective that we may have just not considered before.
Awesome. So you guys know where to find him. Apostle, thank you so much for joining me today. I learned a lot, and I think what you're doing is amazing, and I definitely wish you all the best, and I can't wait to hear more about it. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, and best of luck.
Thank you. And to all of you out there, You heard how to join me in the Bud Funding Academy. The link to do so is in the description of this video. I hope everyone out there is having a wonderful day. I'm super grateful for everyone in this community. Have an awesome day, everyone, and I will see you next week. Thank you, Apostle.